Hello everyone, before we get into today's episode, I'd just like to apologise for any dodgy cuts and transitions in both the visual and the audio of this week's podcast. We've had plenty of technical issues with cameras, with Wi-Fi, with microphones. It just all seemed to hit us at once. I really hope it doesn't affect your listening or visual sort of or watching pleasure. And don't forget, drop a like, drop a subscription, make sure you share it and drop a comment and enjoy. This is episode 4 of the BIFF Rugby League podcast. Hello everybody and welcome back once again to another episode of the BIFF Rugby League podcast. Robin's back this week, but for those of you on YouTube, you can't see him. He's just moved house. He's kind of half settled. Before we sort of go into anything else, how are you, Robin? You good?
I'm good. I'm sorry I wasn't with you last week, lads. I did watch it back. Another thoroughly enjoyable episode. And congrats on making it to BBC Radio Leeds. That was the craziest thing I've seen all week, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't usually I don't like usually listening to us back, but cause I just can't stand the sound of my own voice. But that's the first time I didn't mind listening to it, and we got quite a lot of good feedback from that. So I was pretty happy and pretty chuffed. It's just shame you couldn't be there.
First of many.
Yeah, first of many, and they've invited us back at the end of the season. So, well, that's what he said. That's what he said to us anyway. He said, "See you at the end of the year." So, fingers crossed. We'll hold him to that. Toby, how are you this week?
Yeah, I'm quite good. It was obviously very exciting. I think all my friends and family now know that I'm on a podcast because I could not tell them about our week we had. And I'm excited to keep talking now. It's really motivated me to delve into rugby this week. So
good.
Let's go.
That's exactly what we like to hear. Yeah, like the boys have just said, we were on BBC Radio Leeds, me and Toby last week, which was absolutely surreal for the both of us, and I don't think we could quite believe it having chatted afterwards. So massive thanks to James Dayton and BBC West Yorkshire Sport Daily for that. That's absolutely huge, and we weren't expecting to be on local radio, especially BBC local radio, that soon. But we're going to jump straight into it this week. We've got quite a jam-packed show. We've got a story of the round. We've got a new Hall of Fame inductee. We've got our NRL watch coming up. But first of all, obviously we had the Challenge Cup and we've got Player of the Round. Team of the Month will be out on social media, so we're not really going to discuss it, but we'll make sure you guys see it, and you can make sure you hit us up on social media about that as well. Robin, we're going to come straight to you. You're busy this week. You've had a week off. Straight in with it. It's your story of the round, man. It's back.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some catching up to do. Right? So this story has sort of been brewing. I think ever since the original fixtures came out for the Challenge Cup, and we worked out who could play who in the following round, and we saw this fixture lined up. It was like penciled in for story of the round. And it's the game that I've picked to focus on is the Army versus the Navy, and obviously you don't really need to explain why that's a massive game, why there's such a big rivalry. But I went in and I did a little bit more research because I thought there's probably more to the story than I even understand myself, and there is. I've dug up a story that like most rugby league stories goes all the way back to 1895, and basically for those who don't know, the birth of rugby league, the Northern Union split from the RFU, and rugby league was created in its infancy. And the RFU didn't want rugby league to happen. They wanted to keep the sport of rugby union as an amateur sport, but the Northern Union wanted to pay its players. So the people in positions of power within society who were for the RFU used their power to ensure that rugby league was banned from most educational institutions, and more importantly to this story, the armed forces. So any player, so there was no rugby league in the armed forces. It was totally banned, and any player playing rugby league during this time would also be banned from playing any form of rugby by the RFU for their sins of playing league. And that ban lasted from all the way through until there was a short period during the Second World War when the Northern Command Sports Board held sympathy for some Northern soldiers who wished to play rugby league, and so they set up a number of unofficial matches between some of the Northern clubs and some Army rep sides. but it only lasted until the end of the war, and the relaxation on the ban was lifted. And the Northern Command Sports Board, they didn't want to challenge the domination of Army Rugby Union because it probably would have led to further punishment, and they probably would have had loads of things revoked. So they didn't challenge it, and so the ban remained in place for almost another half century until 1994, when, after tireless efforts by inspirational players from the Army, Navy, RAF, MPs, the RFL, and other stakeholders, managed to lift the ban of playing rugby league in the British Armed Forces, and the sport achieved a formal recognition. So this was huge step. Army Rugby League was created almost immediately. The Air Force and Navy followed suit in 2 years later, and then another 2 years after that, respectively. And the game in the Armed Forces has grown from strength to strength. There's now more playing opportunities than ever for personnel or veterans. There's men's, women's, 13-a-side, masters, touch, tag, disability, wheelchair rugby league. And as we saw this week, teams from the British Army, Royal Navy, Royal Air Force take to the field in the Challenge Cup, in service competitions, the President's Cup. They play against UK students, and they've been doing pretty well in the women's game as well. And the Army now has regular presence at our biggest occasions, from Wembley to Old Trafford, and our international fixtures. And this weekend, we saw the Army take on the Navy in the second round of the Challenge Cup, and this is the first time in history that these two sides have ever been drawn against each other in the Challenge Cup. So I'll set the scene, and I'll just say the Navy earned their spot first with a convincing win against Bridgend Blues. And then the Army we watched them come from a thriller, as these two went in depth on last week, the following day, to earn their spot. And now I would like to pass over to Brad, who was fortunate enough to be at a packed out Aldershot to see this historic and intense clash in person.
And it was genuinely packed out. The fact that their ban lasted 99 years, like, all rugby league was not played in the armed forces for 99 years. And then you're looking at, what's that, 32 years later? What's that, 1994? What's that, 8 years till 2002? 28 years later even? Not 32, that's awful maths. 28 years later. Is it 28 years? Yeah, 28 years later, for these two teams to play each other for the first time in the Challenge Cup. It was unreal. I'm glad that the Sportsman showed it. I'm glad that it got picked for coverage, and I'm glad that the coverage didn't affect the number of people inside Aldershot. Like, I've been to Aldershot before with Bedford Tigers to see the women's game, and it's nice when there's a few people sat there, and there's a bit of atmosphere even when there's only like 20-30 people there. But the stand was packed. The touchline was packed on the side of the stand. I mean, you probably couldn't see a lot of it because of where the cameras were. It was absolutely rammed full, and arguably the Navy fans were louder on the day. But I don't know. The game lived up to the expectation. The atmosphere lived up to the expectation. The spectacle that the Army put on lived up to the expectation. The fact that the Challenge Cup was at Aldershot was fantastic as well. Like, to get that close to such a beautiful trophy, like, if anyone gets the opportunity to see that trophy, like, up front and find your team's name on it, especially if they've only won it once, it's unreal to just see. It's just an amazing atmosphere. And then we got a golden point thriller, like 10-0 down to come back 16-10, or 10-0 down, 16-10, back to 16 all. Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. And the Army neither team deserved to lose at the weekend. Like, we are going to get into the bit of a Challenge Cup fixtures roundup shortly, but neither team deserved to lose, but both teams deserve to win. Just unbelievable. And these lads will get signed. Like, these lads that don't play for professional teams, there's a chance that these guys get signed. We looked at the likes of Ratu Naulago last year, playing a lot of rugby league for the Army, and now he played a lot of time for Hull FC before scooting over to rugby union. There's players out there, not just in the men's team. You look at the women's team as well. You've got Carrie Roberts plays for Saints, Beth Dainton playing for Harlequins. Like, these girls are international level players playing at the top level, but also very much happy to represent their country on the field, off the field, and just be absolutely superb people. It was just, I'm so glad I got to go. So glad. And you know what? It was worth the 4-hour trip there, near 4-hour trip there. Yeah, I was we were left a bit early and stayed in London for a bit, and it was worth going back to London afterwards to make up to the missus the fact I dragged her all the way to Aldershot. But it was really good. I'm glad we went, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Royal Navy play York Acorn in round 3, which we'll obviously get into a bit. But it's a wonderful story, isn't it? Just in all.
You are taking the mick with the games you've gone to in the Challenge Cup so far. You had a thriller in London with the London Chargers game in round 1. You've had a thriller in this Army Navy game in round 2. So I think whoever you choose to go to in round 3,
it's lined up. It's lined up. I've got either I'm going to Portsmouth to watch the Royal Navy versus York Acorn, or the preferred game, because I've got to please the better half, is London Scholars versus Hunslet Club Parkside. So I think I might pop down to London again, and then maybe in round 4 we might all get to go to York to watch York play Newcastle.
Let's do it.
We said we were going to try and get up there this week and meet everyone, but with everything going on in everyone's life, it just didn't really work out. But we need to round up the Challenge Cup fixtures. Yes, the Army versus the Navy was the highlight of the round in terms of the fixtures before the week. But there's one game stood out more than any other, didn't it, this weekend, Toby?
Yeah. I had to think for a second.
he was like, "Which game?" I've thrown this to him.
6-0 Swinton win. But, yeah, of course. Lock Lane pulling off an upset that none of us saw coming, making us all look like the worst predictors.
Well, only me and Robin were bad. You got 5 out of 6 this week, and you can't complain about getting this one wrong.
But yeah, it was absolutely incredible to see Oldham, new relegated side into League One as well, a side you'd expect to be at the top of League One this season. And they lost to Lock Lane, probably one of the most outstanding performances an amateur side's ever put up in the Challenge Cup. Oldham, I wouldn't say they played bad. They were definitely struggled to connect their plays, but I think they were strong through the forwards the whole game, and Lock Lane just matched them incredibly well. And it would lead us into talking about the player of the round that we discussed ready for this, and that would be Lock Lane's half-back, or 5'8", I think he played, in Nathan Fozzard.
Yeah, Nathan Fozzard is the BIFF Rugby League player of the round. For the first player from Lock Lane, the first player from the national the National Conference League, but not quite the first player to win player of the round. Obviously, he joins Eric Sims from round 1 of the Challenge Cup. We had championship players playing this weekend, and this guy stood out above so many others, like Ryan Ince scoring 4, Nene McDonald getting a hat-trick on debut for Lee, Adam Endersby, Jamie Fields putting in massive shifts in the front row for their sides respectively, Jack Bussey and Brandon Pickersgill, unbelievable for Featherstone Rovers last night on Premier Sport, Johnny Griffiths, James Tilley, Danny Johnson, these guys all standing out for the Royal Navy against the Army. But Nathan Fozzard was quality. He ran the show, didn't he?
Yeah, he puts the kick up on the first try, and then Oldham sort of fumble with it. He collects it and scores the try himself. He then gets the assist on the second and third try and converts the fourth try as well as the second and third try along the way. He was outstanding for Lock Lane. He was the difference. He was the one player. These were two sides who physically, I think they matched each other quite well. I wouldn't say Lock Lane dominated the battle any more than Oldham did when they had the front foot ball, but the difference was in the way the halfbacks played. And Nathan Fozzard, he might have a contract coming his way. from some semi-pro team.
Yeah, I mean, you said it last night. You saying to imagine if like Cast Tigers probably need a few of these Lock Lane lads, and I know you said it at a little bit of a jest, but there'll certainly be some Championship and League One clubs knocking around, especially that forward pack who were dominant last night. I thought, not last night, sorry, Sunday night instead. So, but no, we need to crack on. But congratulations to Nathan Fozzard, player of the round, second player of the round from the BIFF. But we'll round up the Challenge Cup. We've already spoke about Lock Lane. We've already spoke about the Royal Navy. But there was 4 ties on Sunday. 4 Betfred League One sides progressed. Doncaster withstood Thornhill Trojans for a 24-6 win. Hunslet battered Keighley Cougars 22-6 in a West Yorkshire derby. Cougars apparently just fell apart towards the end of that game, and Hunslet were just like, yeah, wicked, we'll go along with that. That they joined Hunslet Club Parkside in the 3rd round over Parkside beat Stanley on Saturday. Rochdale get double representation as the Hornets won against Midlands Hurricanes. And then also, where's that game gone? Where's it gone? Rochdale Mayfield overcame West Hull by 2 points. A game that I didn't expect to happen, but only because I didn't realise that York Acorn were in the National Conference League Premier side for the new season. But York Acorn 28, West Warriors 10. Robin, you must be pretty impressed with that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gave West Warriors a really good rap at the start of this year, and we thought it was going to be a challenge. I mean, I watched, I've seen a few highlights out there, and there's some quite silky plays by York, so they'll be quite pleased to come up with such a good result.
Yeah, York Acorn being one of the 6 community sides. We've already mentioned Mayfield, Parkside, the Royal Navy, but they'll join Siddle, who overcame Pilkington Rex 32-10 in an away game. So a nice journey there. Like we said, Lock Lane we got through. The main game that stood out for me was, before we go into the big game, North Wales Crusaders, they had a comfortable win. Brad Brennan looked unstoppable at the weekend for them.
Yeah, I'll save my personal thoughts about Brad Brennan until we've got a bit further into the season. But it was a very strong win by North Wales. I think that's the kind of form that they played with when they were on their winning streak last season, and it's the kind of form which, given the signings they made and the quality we know they've got carried over from last season, parts of last season, it's exactly the result I think I would have expected. But you can never be too sure at the start of a season. I mean, also sort of Geordie Gibson looks like he really could be pushing his way up the divisions as a halfback. He's been outstanding for Crusaders since he signed from an amateur side a couple of years ago. But yeah, good win for North Wales Crusaders. They now move on to play Swinton Lions, who could pull a double Welsh killing in the Challenge Cup round 3.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Like, I'll probably come to you first, if that's okay, Robin, on this. Two relegated sides from the Championship. One in Oldham, who lost to Lock Lane. One in Swinton, who beat a fellow League One side 96-0. Does this say more about the strength of the two teams that came down? Does it say more about the strength of Lock Lane, or does it tell us that, quite frankly, West Wales, since they moved that from South Wales and they dropped the Scorpions name, they've not been as good. They've not been as thingy. They signed Rangi Chase, who left straight away. Gavin Henson was signed and not played for them. There's something going on at that club that isn't right, isn't it?
I mean, 96 points is just ridiculous. That's a team that is. If I was a West Wales fan, I would not be looking forward to this season because, like you say, they're in the same division and they're 96 points off Swinton. Fair enough, they're going to be one of the stronger sides in League One this year, but where are you going to pick up wins if you're 96 points off the top?
Yeah, Robin, you were saying obviously it's not just the West Wales fans that you are probably not going to look forward to seeing their team play. London Scholars probably aren't looking forward to their team playing much this season either. Yes, they beat the Chargers, but from being 24-0 up to drawing the second half 22-all and only winning by 18 points, it's not that convincing of a performance, really, was it?
I wouldn't say it was. It was something that gives me hope for the rest of the season. London Scholars and West Wales both serve a similar purpose in terms of gathering local talent and seeing if they're good enough to progress higher up the league system. And I think Scholars sort of showed in that second half that although they probably get coached at a little bit higher level and there's a bit more incentive for them to sort of train and play than at a fully amateur club like Chargers, I think it's I think this is the best win Scholars will probably have all season, and it showed even in the second half that this isn't a Scholars team who are particularly fit. It's not a Scholars team who are going to have who are going to sort of play hard throughout the season. And I don't think there's much hope, although I think they will beat West Wales when that game comes about. So
yeah, if teams don't beat West Wales, it'll be a bit of a shock. We'll run through the whole scores from round 2, and we'll briefly discuss any round 3 fixtures that take your fancy. Saturday's results: Royal Navy 14, British Army 10 after extra time. The Navy obviously winning that one over an Aldershot. Hunslet Club Parkside 22, Stanley 12. Lee Miners Rangers 8, North Wales Crusaders 40. London Scholars 40, London Chargers 22. Siddle beating Pilkington Rex 32-10 away. Rochdale Mayfield 18, West Hull 16. York Acorn 28-10 victors over West Warriors. Then on Sunday, Doncaster 24-6 over Thornhill. Hunslet beating Keighley 22-6. Lock Lane beating Oldham 22-12 in the shock of the round. Rochdale 36, Midlands Hurricanes 16, and then Swinton Lions 96, West Wales Raiders 0 away in West Wales. Still can't get over that one, which means that in round 3, only the 6 ties, and these League One and amateur clubs or community sides playing each other again. You've got Lock Lane versus Rochdale Hornets, the Royal Navy versus York Acorn, London Scholars versus Hunslet Club Parkside, Swinton Lions versus North Wales Crusaders, Rochdale Mayfield versus Doncaster, and Hunslet versus Siddle. Robin, are any of these games standing out to you?
There's a few, isn't there? There's some few tasty games there. I think it'll be a challenge for London Scholars, as we've just talked about. They're not looking the strongest, and Hunslet Club Parkside seem to be quite good. Obviously, for me, seeing the Navy take on York Acorn, that'll be interesting. I feel like I've followed these two teams through the cup now, so I'm interested to see that. And I'm also interested to see if Lock Lane can pull off another upset of a League One club.
Yeah, they got a home tie this time around. Do you think playing at home against Rochdale will potentially give them a bit of a kick in and maybe mean that Lock Lane go into this with more confidence? Being at home, if they were away, it'd be a tougher ask for sure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually played at Lock Lane, and they've got some really good facilities, and Castleford is a real rugby league town, isn't it? So I'm sure they'll be able to get a really good turnout to try and give them that extra boost. So yeah, they've got that advantage definitely.
Yeah, and if they do win, they get a home tie against Championship Barrow in round 4. Round 4 ties also came out tonight. We'll fly through them really quickly as well. York City Knights are going to have Newcastle at home. Featherstone travel to Halifax in a repeat of last year's playoff semi-final. Lee Centurions versus Widnes. Like I just mentioned, Lock Lane or Rochdale versus Barrow. Batley will welcome Royal Navy or Acorn. So we're guaranteed one community side in round 4. London Broncos versus Bradford Bulls. The Scholars or Hunslet will play host to Sheffield Eagles. Swinton or North Wales Crusaders will play Hunslet or Siddle. Workington will play Dewsbury in another all-championship clash. And then Rochdale Mayfield or Doncaster versus Whitehaven. 4 all-championship ties. There's going to be a lot of big teams not in this competition in round 5. And there's going to be potentially loads of big teams out of the competition for round 6 to make it even easier for these Super League sides.
Yeah, I think we expressed our frustrations enough a podcast or two ago about the Challenge Cup sort of structure and how it's just shocking that the Super League teams come in and play around they play around a 16 and 12 of the teams in it are from the same league. There's no spirit of cup spirit in that. I think that's a shared opinion across sort of all three of us. But I mean, those 4th round ties, I think Batley's the standout when they're going to be playing an amateur side or a rep side.
Yeah.
also Fax Fev is a fantastic chance to see a very high quality game, and but we won't look too far ahead to then because we're still a few weeks away from there.
We are.
My focus is purely on these round 3 ties, which are actually, when I look at them, there's 4 chances for a League One club to be knocked out. There's a potentially fantastic game between Royal Navy and York Acorn, which have got huge implications for the 4th round in terms of one of them will be playing Batley, and then Swinton North Wales is a potential sort of like precursor to the League One title race, or maybe not title race, but playoff push. This season. So I think although I wish there was 20 ties in round 3, the 6 we've got are actually quite ideal.
Yeah, 6 ties in round 3, 10 in round 4, and then 5 in round 5 before everyone but Toulouse from Super League enters in round 6. Like you said, 16 teams, 11 of which will be from the Super League. One of them could be a rep side if the Royal Navy or York Acorn do a number over Batley. Probably not going to happen down at the slope, but you're guaranteed to have 4 championship sides out of the competition before round 5. That makes it so much easier for the bigger teams coming through. You're guaranteed 5 championship sides to be knocked out. That's ridiculous. I think we've discussed it a little bit, and we might later in the year release our sort of Challenge Cup fix where we think the RFL could, by taking a round out, they could make it so much more competitive by entering the Super League teams into a round of 32. But we can discuss that, and maybe we'll treat you guys to that later in the season. It doesn't take long to work out a real quality. So, and you still leave in the Challenge Cup final in May. But we need to move on. Like I said, Robin, you've been busy this week. Toby, you don't know what's coming up here. I do, but it's your Hall of Fame inductee or inductees. I don't know what to call them.
This is a bit of a different one, isn't it? So we haven't told Toby what mine is, just to get his honest opinion. I don't think it's going to be too controversial, but still be interesting to hear. So, I mean, last week Brad, you had a great one with the Volcano Vinicola on the wing, and I'm sure he would have loved to have had this rule change in his era, because he'd have been pretty unstoppable. So my Hall of Entry fame this week is the rule change that allowed the corner flags to become in the field of play. So for those that don't know, in each corner of a rugby pitch you've got a corner flag, and in the past they were considered out of play. So if a ball carrier was to touch a flag, then they would have to hand over the ball to the defending team. So this wasn't a problem, and it actually helped the referees a little bit, because if they saw the corner flag was knocked over, then they knew that it was touched. But as the game evolved and the athleticism of the players increased, the margins got smaller, and so players would really push it on the wings and try and squeeze around the outside defender to plant the ball down as close to the corner flag as possible. And in the late sort of 2000s, there was more and more of these acrobatic tries being attempted, and inconsistencies started to appear, because the space in the corner, or between the last defender and the corner flag, will vary. It depends. What is the corner flag? A very tall corner flag? Does it lean inwards? Is the wind that's sort of like making it move around? And there's also safety concerns, because as these players were sort of like learning the art of diving to score, it makes more sense to try and fly towards the defender than it does towards the corner flag. So there were some nasty head clashes as a result, because of the way the ruling was with the corner flag. And the fans were enjoying seeing these like flying tries, and they wanted, and so rugby league administrators wanted to encourage more. And as with most innovative changes to our game, it happened in the NRL first, and they introduced the rule change in the middle of 2010, and that allowed the ball carrier to touch the corner flag without being out of play. So still, if you touch the outside of the field of play, you're out, but the corner flag is not included in the outside of the field of play anymore. So that addresses safety concerns, because now wingers could go airborne and they would sort of go towards and beyond the touchline. so the impact from a covering defender is in like a similar direction, and therefore the collision speeds were reduced. And also the NRL they identified that eventually it was only a matter of time before a defender could manipulate the corner flag to touch a ball carrier. So rather than making a tackle, you just grab the corner flag and touch the tackle with it. So they wanted to avoid that kind of controversy. Like you could decide a game. Could you imagine how embarrassing that'd be? So yeah, so they changed the rule, and since then the art of flying into the corner and planting the ball down within a blade of grass of the touchline is an essential skill for wingers. It's become a staple in their toolkit. And we probably see one every single game now. It's become so common. And in the Super League, you've got players like Tommy Makinson and Tom Johnston that have just sort of like perfected the art. They can score a try with literally, if they're given inches. And I love it. I think it sells posters. Like it's such a great image seeing these like athletes flying through the air, and it's become to rugby league what the slam dunk is to the NBA, where these like superstar athletes are flying through the air to score, and they're like posterizing the defenders. So and I've seen loads of these tries. I think that it's such a good rule change, and there's always controversies with rule changes, but this one I've never met a single person that would have it back. So that's why it's undoubtedly a Hall of Fame entry for me.
Just name those two players you mentioned again.
Tommy Makinson and Tom Johnson.
That's quite funny because when I went to pick two images to put on our Hall of Fame inductee sort of display, I chose Tom Johnson and Tommy Makinson, and they're both scoring tries against Hull KR, which is quite funny in opposite corners, obviously for different teams. Toby, when Robin told me this, I just said I like it, and you saw it. You saw me say I like it on WhatsApp yesterday. What do you like this? Do you like this inductee? Do you think it's a good one?
I'm glad we got that level of explanation from Robin, because I forgot we had corner flags in rugby league at the start, and I was like, I've never seen these corner flags. Obviously, they're always flattened from someone scoring incredible tries, and the more I think about it, the more iconic images I have in my head, and I couldn't put names on the faces, but of someone flying out round the side of a winger and taking the corner flag with them, planting the ball down with like this much, a tiny little gap between the line, the touch line, and the try zone. And I think it is very warranted, because in the time that I've grown up watching rugby league, which is what the mid 2010s, when I've got into rugby league, and the acrobatic tries are the thing which keep you coming back, or one of the few things that keep you coming back every single week, regardless of a win or lose for your team. I think that's actually surprisingly is what he, in a way, what Robin's put into the Hall of Fame is acrobatic try scoring. But that wouldn't even be allowed.
No.
The corner.
No, I get that.
I really hope when it was changed, it went to a very serious tribunal of traditional people versus
forwards versus backs. That's what it went to.
I hope it went to a really big like forwards versus back tribunal, and Robin's whole "the wind can change the corner flag's direction" really nice was part of that argument, because that is actually brilliant, and I feel real pressure to have to top that next week in our Hall of Fame.
Yeah, tell you what, Robin, it makes a difference from Kevin Sinfield and Rob Burrow, that's for sure. From week one, we do need to move on though to something a bit more serious, a bit more rugby league, if that makes sense, and we need to talk championship. It returned this week, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I really don't. I don't. Like, what happened? I don't know what happened. We lost. Fax lost to Batley, but I just want to start about Monday night. Last night, for a time of recording, Monday night. Robin, you were lucky enough to get down to the liner, the LNER Stadium for Fev versus York. We were quite impressed with York the first half. They weren't amazing, but they held their own.
Yeah.
That second half was totally different Fev team though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like I think York sort of had a game plan to try and match Featherstone, and like you say, in the first half they were almost there. I think if they'd have repeated the first half, they would have still lost. I don't actually know if they had a win in them, but they were like you say, it was respectable effort. But yeah, that second half, Featherstone were just unstoppable, and we talk about these teams in the past where the championship winning teams, the teams that win the competitions, they can absorb pressure. And I think York threw everything they could at Featherstone. And there was times where they would have broken through other teams, but this Featherstone side, with the experience they've got and the talent they've got, they could just absorb the pressure and keep going. And York sort of almost ran out of steam. And then by 60 minutes in, Featherstone were just running rings around them all because York had nothing left. So this Featherstone side is really like living up to the preview that we gave them over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Another team that we knew would impress us this week was Lee. They put 50 points on Whitehaven. Pretty expected, wouldn't you say? Either of you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd say that, it kickstarts my Lee underdogs to win the league when Featherstone quite well. But no, I mean, I did. If anyone listened to the BBC Sport the West Yorkshire Sport interview we did, I did sort of change that tone and agree that Featherstone are going to win the league now. But it's a fantastic win for Lee. If they're going to continue doing this for the rest of the season, we will see, and we will see next week on Monday Night Rugby League as Lee and Fev do play each other. Which I do just want to make the comment about the Premier Sports coverage.
Unreal.
If you showed that to somebody who doesn't know and you said this is the top division of rugby league, this is the coverage we get on this channel, I don't think there's any reason to doubt that.
On a Monday night in what looked like a very well packed stadium. Yes, one of the stands was empty, I believe, but both ends had fans in, and the main stand was pretty wrapped full, wasn't it as well, Robin?
Yeah, I think the attendance was 3,300, something like that. So pretty good for a Monday night in January. It was. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's only yesterday was January. Other results from the weekend: Batley beating Halifax 16-0 up at one point with Fax, to then lose the game by 12 and be down to 11 for part of the game was quite embarrassing. And to listen back to that it didn't seem like the Fax. I said last week they need to start fast if they want to be up there, and they haven't started fast at all. Yeah, players missing, fair enough, but shouldn't have started that slowly. Widnes beating London down at the Cherry Red Record Stadium 34-12. Over 2,000 people down in Wimbledon for that one. That's positive for London, isn't it?
That's great. That's really, really good. And I mean, what's the travel like from Widnes? I can't imagine there would have been like that many fans.
It couldn't have been easy, that's for sure. It's not an easy journey.
That's great, and I think it's really important that London can cement a fan base in Wimbledon. This might be the answer that they've been looking for all these years.
Yeah, the kit as well, with the homage to Wimbledon as sort of like a thank you for the one season. The blue and yellow look really stylish. Yes, they didn't win the game, but we're not expecting them to win many games this season. We said the squad wasn't very strong, but they didn't play badly, I don't believe, from what I've seen, what I've heard. Other results from the weekend: Bradford putting 46 points past Dewsbury as they win 46-16. Newcastle comfortable over Workington, 20 points to 6. And then perhaps the shock of the round: Barrow Raiders 22, Sheffield Eagles 10. Hakeem Maludi and Ritson, sort of, these guys from last year, Toby. That was a pretty solid performance from the old League One team.
Yeah, it's a great performance by Barrow. I think it's quite worrying times for Sheffield more than anything. I think Sheffield, in terms of the part they've played in rugby leagues over the past sort of 100 years, really, has been huge. And seeing them on this sort of steady decline isn't great. But it's full credit to Barrow. This is the kind of performance that you can expect from them at their very best. Last season, they got off to a great start and then started to slip off, but at that point, it was too late for them to be caught. Obviously, we're not going to expect them to be on a huge winning run in such a tough league as the Championship. But this is a real test of how well they're coached now. And they play Whitehaven next week in a Cumbria derby. If they can turn over Whitehaven, all of a sudden, I think we need to review our predictions.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I said on the BBC that I think B.I.F.F can go unbeaten. Last night watching them, I didn't believe they were going to do that. They didn't look amazing, but then we looked at which players they were missing. We looked at Barrow beating Sheffield this week. They've got a really big game coming up next week. Fax need to get their act in order. Batley have got a win. Widnes have got an early win. Bradford have got an early win. York looked good. They're probably going to pick up some wins this season. But if any of these sort of mid-table to playoff teams will lose for a second time in round 2, especially London or Halifax, one of them two teams lose, fans are going to be looking at them going, maybe we haven't improved where we need to improve. Maybe we haven't kept the players we need to have kept. Do you see any of these teams trying to sign any more players between like now and in the next few weeks? Because they've definitely got to improve a little bit more, haven't they? Especially these not so deep squads.
It's hard to say. I mean, who's going to be available at this time of year? It's going to be difficult if you've not got your answer ready. Then it's going to be hard to try and patch it up with recruitment. You really want to be looking at improving what you've already got at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. There's a player that I didn't realise that didn't have a club at the moment. A player that you'll probably know quite well, Toby, and it's quite a good. Before we shift into your NRL watch segment, Dynamis Louis hasn't got a contract anywhere. He didn't play badly last year in the NRL.
He was very good.
Do you think
there was games when he outperformed Josh Papali or Josh Papali'i?
Papali'i. Do you think he's a Lee player in the making, a Fev player? Maybe not a Fev player in the making, but do you think he might go to one of these top level champ sides that are maybe looking for a bit more like punch in their forward pack, or do you think he's going to be a Super League player? Do you think he might get snapped up by an NRL team for a season? Because we know he's going to the Dolphins in 2023 now, but where's he going to? He hasn't got a club for in between.
Look, I mean, it's hard to say if he'd want to come sort of over just for a year. I feel like if he was going to go anywhere, he'd look for a nice little holiday in France.
Lesignon, anyone?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a very sort of. It'd be a great signing for any club, but I'm not sure, whether it's something where as soon as an injury comes to a good prop forward in an NRL team, I've got a feeling that they'll just get on the phone to him and see what he's saying. So we'll see. I think he might sort of wait out and just be comfortable, let COVID Australia sort of blow over and stay nice and safe and go. It's ready to start in 2023.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, this links Dynamis Louis playing for Canberra, your team, links really well into the NRL watch. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, so this week was the State of Origin wheelchair rugby league game. Come
on, Queensland! Come on, up the Maroons.
Yeah, in Australia, and it was something where I was looking through the NRL website, begging for them to give me some news. And they put this right in my mind. It was, I don't know why it's played in Australian summer, because an indoor sport in Australian summer must be the most hellish.
It must be so warm inside for them.
The most hellish thing I can imagine. But Queensland beat New South Wales 50-30.
Come on.
Match in Sydney, and I just think it's something where it's worth talking about because we were excited for the Wheelchair World Cup, which never got to happen last year and will be happening this year. And I think it's good to see that the State of Origin name is being carried across the wheelchair game now too.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I like Wheelchair Rugby League. I'm looking forward to watching it in the winter. It's not the only bit of NRL news that we've sort of seen this week though. It's the All-Star game coming up. The squads were announced today, but massive name players not playing. Kalen Ponga, Jerome Luai, Nickel Klokstad, Harawira Naira, Cody Walker and Jack Whiten will all miss out this All-Star game. But someone who is playing in this All-Star game will be Albert Kelly. Do you think the All-Star game needs to happen for these guys? Or could they just play like a proper... I don't know what they could do. Could they bring the NRL 9s back instead? I don't know.
I think
It's
NRL
Go on, Toby.
I was just saying, I think NRL 9s is the dream, and I think it will be back as soon as COVID-free Australia is a thing. But we know, if you want to hear our views on COVID Australia, go find some live shows from last year.
Yeah. Yeah, we were probably a little bit harsh on those, but yeah, go on.
In terms of the All-Star game, it's actually quite interesting how, in terms of the Australian public, they actually respond really well to the Indigenous versus Maori, and anyone with a Maori descent and anyone with Indigenous descent see it as a celebration of their culture and their heritage and their history, which is really interesting because in terms of the quality of players on show, the Old World versus Indigenous All-Stars was actually a much more enticing clash in terms of what you would actually see on the pitch and who was able to play for each side. But it seems to be sort of a celebrated event and something that's been huge since I've been watching the NRL. Every single year there's more to represent the Indigenous people. And if this is sort of, I've got no problem with them playing this playing this as their All-Star game if that's what it means to certain communities. But it is sometimes frustrating that some actual All-Star players don't qualify for either team.
Yeah, it is quite gutting. We've got some absolutely world-class English players that play over there that you're not going to see in an All-Stars game. Do you think they could bring some sort of voting system in like they do in the NBA, or do you think that's where it gets a little bit sketchy because the teams with bigger support are going to get more players in, aren't they?
Yeah, I think like Toby says, it's less about the game and more about what the game means and what it represents, and that's why the team selection is based on that. I mean, I don't really want to get into the whole Albert Kelly thing, but is he really the appropriate man to be sort of going into the community and doing all this outreach stuff with his history? I don't know. I think is there not better placed people to do that?
Yeah, I think there is. I think this is where the NRL. It's probably another topic for maybe a different NRL watch and a more of a debate style podcast, maybe during an off season or during a long international break where there's not many fixtures. But this is where the NRL haven't always got it right in terms of how they deal with off-field issues. And Super League haven't been perfect either. Maybe it's a rugby league thing. But a lot of off-field issues don't get sorted the way they should be sorted. And that's how I see it. But there's nothing. I don't think we're in a position to say how exactly they can deal with it because we don't know the extent of what they can and can't do. We're not in that position, and let's not dig ourselves into a hole, and let's move on to something light-hearted. Toby, you've given us 3 ratings on badges so far.
I have.
I didn't show you last night what it was going to be. You picked the league for me. Which league did you pick?
I can't remember what the actual name of the league is, but it's the one Red Star playing, the Serbian/Baltic.
Yeah, you picked the Baltic Super League, I believe you picked. Or you picked you wanted a Serbian rugby league team. You've been given, and I've only picked this team because we've given them kit. Bedford Tigers have sent them kit. And there's a little bit of a link and whatever. The Dorking Tigers badge. For those on YouTube, it's on your screen. For those listening, feel free to search it up online. What are you giving this out of 10?
So you've just sent this on WhatsApp?
I have. You've only got it in the last 10 minutes. So you've only had a few minutes to look at this.
You've just sent this to me, and I've opened it, and I was trying to hold back my laughter. Tony the Tiger has eaten all of his Frosties, gone down the gym, grabbed the nearest rugby ball, broke out of prison, and then put himself in a bomb. I have no clue what is going on, but I will tell you now that if you're going to use the Tiger's name, please make it a tiger with a giant bicep like they have. So
it's huge, isn't it?
This is incredible. I think that in terms of they've the fact that they've I don't know why there's a bomb. Why is there a bomb?
Because he's using it to break out of prison. That's what he's doing. He just wanted to break out of prison with a bomb to go and eat a rugby ball. I don't know what he's doing after this, but he's doing something. Is Tony?
I'll tell you what.
It's a story.
No one's stopping that tiger, are they? He is absolutely jacked.
He's absolutely jacked. Yeah, and you know what? So because it's not, because I think that a tiger breaking out of prison with a bomb to catch a rugby ball, which they're probably going to eat because he's run out of Frosties, is the best sort of idea I've ever seen for a badge. The only thing stopping me is the level, it being too comical to a certain degree. Is the only thing stopping me scoring it in the elite tier. But I would say that this right here is easily in the 8.5 territory.
It's a winner. It's leading. It is leading. It has gone above York Acorn in the ratings. We've now got 4 teams rated. We'll start from the bottom. Philadelphia Fight got a 6. Carsacon got a 7.5, I believe. York Acorn got an 8. But now Dorkall Tigers from the Baltic Super League have got an 8.5. Robin just said, wow. That was all I got. All I got was wow with the star eyes emoji on WhatsApp.
Honestly, normally when dealing with these things, I go with the design approach of less is more. But in this case, more is more. They couldn't have chucked any more on this badge. And honestly, this is one of my favourite rugby league badges ever for that reason.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. It's really, really good. I'm liking this. I'm loving the creative aspect of this. If you want to pick a league and you want Toby to do a badge, particularly from any team, drop it in a comment. Message us on Twitter. If you want to message me so Toby doesn't see it, feel free. That'll be out on socials as well. But it's time to move on to our set of 6, just as we approach nearly the hour mark. There's 7 championship games this week, but we're only allowed to pick 6 of them. And usually, I'd pick Fax. I'd usually be like, we'll throw them in there because they're a top team in the league. We've not done it this week. Toby suggested that we shouldn't do it, and seeing as they lost and London lost, it's not a very interesting game. First up, though, I didn't send them to you, did I? I don't think, Robin, this week.
I've not seen them yet, no.
Oh, so then in that case, then I won't make you go first for the first couple. But you've got, if you want to open them on BBC while you're sat here, feel free. But first up, Bradford Bulls at home against the Sheffield Eagles.
With Sheffield losing to Barrow, Bradford having a huge win against Dewsbury, and we think that Sheffield and Dewsbury are very similar quality teams this season. Bradford are now at home in Odsall. I think that they played really well. They've got some great try scoring ability, and I think that they'll rack up a good 30 or 40 points on Sheffield in this one. Not that we predict winning margins, but I'll be taking Bradford comfortably on this.
Robin, where are you sitting on this one? Do you sort of agree with this?
Yeah, I didn't need to do my research on this one. This is a clear cut. Definitely going to back Bradford after last week's performance from Sheffield. Yeah,
poor performance from Sheffield, followed up by a decent performance from Bradford. Bradford are Odsall. It's not a long way to travel, but Sheffield have got some big boots to fill. Bradford looking really strong. I think it's a triple whammy here. We're all going for the home side in Bradford Bulls. Game 2, Batley, after a really nice win over Halifax, travelled to Newcastle, who also picked up a win. So 2 teams that won on round 1. One of them's going to lose. One of them's going to have 4 points at the end of this weekend. Where are we going here? I think I'm going to go for the home side. I think I'm going to go for Newcastle here. I think Batley were really good, but I don't want Batley to win again. So I'm going to go for Newcastle in this one. I think they've just got something about them that will push them over the teams that are near them.
Yeah, I I've obviously spoke well about Newcastle to get them not only fourth in the league predictions, but also to get you to predict them. And in terms of how I see Newcastle season panning out, I should take Newcastle too, but Batley has made me look incredibly smart last week. I fluked the prediction, hoping that I'd pick up some points on this podcast. I then made it as a very serious, and I thought out the actual reasoning behind that pick for the BBC, which turned out to be the right pick. So I am a full Batley fan until they lose me a point, and I will Batley here.
So if we put Batley Fev in 1 week, are you going to go for Batley if they haven't lost you a point?
Batley are still undefeated at that point, then I
will. Robin, we've split it down the middle.
Oh, it's a tough one. Do you know, I was waiting to hear what you both said and see if I could go for the opposite. And now you've gone 50-50. I don't know. I think we've predicted like reasonable season from Batley, a stronger season from Newcastle. I think Batley will be on a high, but like you say, following it up a second week in a row is going to be tough. Whereas I think Newcastle, they've sort of were a bit more dominant, so I feel like they've got more like in them that they can bring to the table. So I'm going to go for Newcastle.
Nice, and you can kick off game 3 for us, Robin. It's a Cumbrian derby, Barrow Raiders at Whitehaven.
Yeah, this is we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? The game. It's a toughie. I mean, but like Barrow again, they've come up with a good result last week. Whitehaven the opposite. So I think just on that, if you'd have asked me this, and I wasn't looking at last week's scores, then I probably would have gone with Whitehaven. But just on last week's scores, I feel like I'm gonna take Barrow. I think they're on a high.
Which Toby, where are you heading on this one?
Yeah, with Whitehaven at home looking to bounce back, looking to prove that they're still a commendable side after, quite frankly, I feel like they overperformed last season in terms of where people would have put them at the beginning of the season, but I think that's what we can expect from them now. So I think that this is Whitehaven's chance to sort of get their season up and running, because Lee away was almost an impossible ask. And I will go with Whitehaven.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying with this Whitehaven team, but they don't seem to have really. I don't think they've improved on the players that they lost last season. Barrow have improved slightly on the team that they got promoted with last season, and they're coming off a really good win. They're not having to travel that far. Yes, they're playing away at a massive rival. I think they might be able to step up and do it here, and I think I'm going to go for Barrow on this one as well, just to split it up a little bit. Game 4, Widnes, after a big win, are welcoming Workington Town. Toby, we'll start with you on this one.
I think Workington are a very similar standard to London this year, and Widnes didn't have too many issues scoring points against them. With Widnes currently being fully fit, and not just fully fit but fresh because it's the start of the season. Matty Smith's got juice in the tank, and I think that that they look like they're going to have a good start to the season. Although they play Fev in round 3, so maybe they'll have an okay start to the season. And I'll take Widnes to beat Workington at home.
Robin, are you going to make it 3 out of 3 for Widnes and join me on this? I'm going Widnes on this one quite comfortably, I think.
Yeah, I can't see a way that Workington win that, so I'm backing Widnes.
Yeah, we say it's quite an easy one. We got the easy one wrong in the last set. Next up, it's your team, Robin, at home against Dewsbury. After you saw them play last night or Monday night, do you think they've got to win this game, haven't they?
Yeah, I think like we were saying that they didn't get the result, but there was really good signs there. I think Jamie Ellis is looking really strong. Chris Clarkson, the loose forward, he had a really good game, so I'm backing him to be maybe our player of the season. And being able to see those signs early on against a strong Pedersen side is filling me with a lot of confidence. So I'm gonna back York again this week.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the way your forward pack played last night, especially that first hour. I felt like their rotation in the second half maybe let them down a little bit, especially with Paulie not wanting to come off. Obviously, what was your, before I go on to Toby's prediction, what did you think of Pauly's decision there? Because they brought him over to the sideline a few times and he just didn't want to come off, did he?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think like he was playing really well, and he was drawing in Featherstone defenders, so he was doing his job. I to be honest, from the sidelines, I couldn't really work out too much of it, but I don't know. There was a play at the end of the first half when we were sort of built a bit of momentum just before the break, and somebody had taken the wrong line and sort of almost taken the ball out of his hands by running the wrong line and catching the pass that he was expecting.
Yeah.
And he just sort of turned around and was like visibly like annoyed at this guy. And there's just little things like that. Is like maybe makes you question whether he's really has the right level of respect. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but yeah, definitely an odd one. First game of the year. What are you what have you got to lose?
Yeah, exactly. If your coach is saying come off because I want to bring Danny Kermond on, you're going to come off so Danny Kermond can get a stint and you can rest. Like he looked knackered towards the end of the game, and he just didn't. And he just he refused to come off. But we must move on. Toby, are you going to make it 3 out of 3? I'm going to go York at home again against Dewsbury on this one.
Look, I think York produced more concerns for me than they did for anyone else. I think their halves combination of Marsh and Ellis didn't particularly work too well in their favour, and I think their second row, when Kerman wasn't playing, I think their second row on both sides, and Chris Clarkson and Pauly were a bit slow on sort of the defensive side of things, but I still think that this team is a step above Dewsbury. I think Jubb played really well. I really liked what Jordan Thompson did through the middle. I think it was Jack Teamby, maybe.
Yeah, Teamby was good. Really impressive.
Did really well through the middle as well. And Brining, when he came on to do sort of extra minutes, the alternate minutes at hooker, played well as well. So I think that there was enough there for me to sort of be convinced that York have something to build on, but I do have my concerns throughout the season now if they're going to stick with something similar to this. But I know there is players they're waiting to come back into the lineup.
Yeah, 100%. 3 out of 3 for York. We've all gone for Bradford. We've all gone for Widnes. We've all gone for York. Game 6. Are we all going for Fev over Lee, or is someone that doesn't think Fev are the favourite but kind of changed their mind and is on the fence but leaning towards both sides? I'm going to leave you till last, Toby, on this one because I feel like you're going to shock us. Robin, where are you going here?
Yeah, this is like such a massive clash in round 2, so it's difficult to say, isn't it? I think Widnes obviously have a strong squad, played well last week. We've seen the Featherstone squad. We spoke about the Featherstone squad. They're definitely the 2 favourites for the promotion. So it'll be close, but I think I'm going to have to go Featherstone just based on all the things we spoke about over the last couple of weeks. But I won't be surprised if I've got that wrong.
I don't know where I'm going yet. So Toby, I'm not going to put you last. I'm going to let you try and convince me to pick Lee.
This is a hard game because I need to see the squads before I pick. The reason I say that is because I think the one place Featherstone fell down where Lee will punish them was their passing out wide was not good enough. Nope. Tom Holmes and Morgan Smith both had passes out towards the centres and wingers, which just didn't find the place they needed to find. That being said, I don't think they'll have an issue in matching Lee in the forwards. In fact, they could well even dominate Lee in the forwards. Jack Bussey, I think it's James Lockwood.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And
they were just as good on the edges, even with Jesse Senefama picking up that early injury, which I don't think is something they're going to struggle to sort of make up for in the short term. Perhaps, depending on how long he's out, we could see in the long term sort of a change to that. But I think it comes down to, will they play the same halves combination? Dane Chisholm is available, technically.
Riley Jacks could be available if he's in the country.
Could be available. and Joey Leilua could be available for this too, which could change all sorts of factors, especially that right centre spot. All of a sudden, does it matter what your playmaker's doing if Joey Leilua is there in the centre spot to do it for him? So I think it really does depend on who comes into that Featherstone squad. But assuming you don't drop a winning team, and Fev go into the game against Lee with the exact same 17 minus Jesse Sene-Lafau, I would say that Lee currently look a little bit stronger.
You didn't convince me, I'll be honest. You said so much positive stuff about the changes that Fev could make and the players they could bring in, and they still managed to beat a quite a solid York team. I know you said you were a bit shocked and a bit sort of, they gave you a few concerns, but I've still got Fev winning this. I said to the BBC they're going to go unbeaten, and I think I'm going to match you with your Batley thing. Until Fev lose a game, I'll pick them every weekend. Unless it's against a Super League type side in the Challenge Cup, I pick Fev every week. I just think that's the way we have to do it. Yeah, you're taking Lee on that one, which is not a surprise. Yeah, they're your favourite. So overall, then we've all gone Bradford, we've all gone Widnes, we've all gone York. Toby, you've gone Batley. Me and Robin have gone for Newcastle. Me and Robin have then both gone for Barrow. You've gone for Whitehaven. Me and Robin have both gone for Fev, and you've gone for Lee. Robin, we've picked the same here for everything. Great minds think alike. Maybe that's why we're 3 or 4 points behind. What's that? Yeah, I don't understand how you're so many points ahead. Seeing as you're on 12.5, Toby, I'm on 9.5, and Robin, you're on 8.5. But it's been a good week for you, Toby, on your predictions, taking a nice lead. We'll come back next week. We'll talk more Championship. We'll talk Super League. It's back. Not this weekend, coming weekend after. There may be a bumper episode after this recording. We'll have to have a little chat, and then we'll let you know. We'll let everyone know on social media what we're dealing with that before the end of the weekend and how we're going to manage that. But next week it is Super League preview, Challenge Cup round 3 preview, Championship little bit of preview. We'll bring you more Hall of Fame. We'll bring you another story of the round. We'll bring you another player of the round, and we'll bring you more news from the NRL. And we'll bring you another badge rating. Like I said, pick your league, pick your team. If you don't want Toby to know, message me or Robin, and we'll sort it out. Thank you for all the support from after the BBC before the BBC interview from last week. Thank you for all the support and the love so far on both Spotify and on YouTube. We really do appreciate it. We're small time. We don't mind being small time. But if you can help us become big time, then we'll love you all forever. I've been Bradley. That's been Toby. That's been a very, very still Robin. He hasn't moved all night. But that's been Robin's back this week. We'll have Robin again next week. And we've been the BIFF Rugby League podcast. See you next time.
Goodbye.